Here we go. Welcome to the Profit Toolbelt podcast. This is just for construction and contracting business owners who are interested in the business of the contracting business. If you're in a place in your life where you want to start to work smarter, not just harder, you are in the right place. And today is the episode you've been looking for. Let me start, though, by asking you a pretty upfront question. Do you find yourself a mix of excited and frustrated and curious all at the same time? You know, you're excited because you're good. You're good at your trade. You know, you can do great work. And then you're frustrated because you're trying to grow a business. And it feels like every time you take a step forward, you also slide 2 steps back. And then pulling at you as well, you're curious. You're curious because you're actually looking for answers. You haven't just settled into the groove and accepted the fate that so many other contractors do and say, I'm just going to stay small. For some reason, there's some fire inside you and it's burning. It says, I can do more. You know, we can get bigger. I can make this work. Things like that. Well, if that's the case, you're in the right place. Now, today's guest is John Gioffre. Hold on to your hat. John is a custom home builder in Austin. You might already know him from Instagram, where he had a huge, massively viral post about a beautiful Victorian-style home that he made. So here is why this episode is important before we launch into it. Number one, because John is the real deal when it comes to custom home building. Number two, his process, his approach, and his mindset when it comes to working with the homeowner is incredible. John owns the process. You're going to hear that today like you probably have never heard before. And then I guess the last thing is this is the inside track that you've probably been looking for. It has to be. Whether you do small kitchen and bathrooms or you build custom homes like him, or you're a trade contractor doing any other trade, if you struggle with the quote unquote, how do I communicate to the project owner questions, you are going to pick up a lot of meat from this bone. All right. In general, though, what's the podcast all about? Well, it's about mindset. It's about focus, the why and the how. And you, my friend, you have to bring the when. Now, if you tuned in because you're at the point in your business where you realize it's time to level up, like I said before, you're in the right place. This show is specifically crafted to hit 3 high points: educate, inform, and inspire business owners in the trades. My goal is to show you the path so that you can move from being a contractor who has a shop or a field crew, whatever that is. I want to change your thinking, change your approach, really, again, your mindset, to one where you're a business person who just happens to run a trade company. Now, I haven't seen every single situation in the world, but I've been doing this for over 20 years. When I invite a guest to be on the show, the first thing I need to ask myself is, can this guest answer a common problem, a frustration, or a stuck point? Or, can this topic add value in a way you, the audience, never, ever considered before? And can they answer the questions I get from you guys who are listening to the podcast right now? Because people reach out to me all the time. Then we have conversations, right? And here's the things I hear when I have those conversations from other business owners just like you. Dom, you're doing good. We could be doing better. Or I had this question the other day from Ramon and Eddie. Look, we're ready, but there's so much to do. I don't know where to start, or we don't know where to start. They're brothers. Why am I busy, but I'm still broke? I call that one the kitchen table conversation, and you know exactly what I mean. Why are we busy, but still broke? I have to answer that question on this show. And then the other one that is really unique to us. This is a family business, and ... Those sound familiar? Well, there you go. Then you're going to be happy to know that I use those kind of questions to build the agenda and the outline for this podcast this year, because we're scheduled out for the year. At the same time, this show might frustrate you because the topics and subjects are, they're aimed at people, business owners with companies in the $1 million plus range. Because when you're selling and producing jobs, that's a rate of about 83 grand a month in work or work in progress, WIP. Those little moves add up to big, big differences. That's why those kind of companies tune into this show. Now, if you're smaller than that, I'm not going to leave you hanging. You should definitely still listen, stick around, take a lot of notes. As a matter of fact, the advantage of everything here is because this kind of information is the type you can use to bring your business from a couple hundred grand to $1 million in a very short time. And look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what size your company is. What matters is the path you have chosen to take. And if you're on a path of growing this thing, you're in the right room. Now, that does mean that sometimes our show is going to sound more like board of director education or CEO of large construction company talk. It just is what it is. No matter what, I work hard to make sure everything we talk about here is easy to understand or has a simple visual to go along with it, because simple systems scale. Simple pictures, simple documents, simple ideas, simple models. Okay. So on this show, you're going to hear from other experts. Like I said, you're going to be surprised by some of the outside guests I bring in. And I bring them in so you have perspective, vision, clarity. That's my nice way of saying I'm going to be bringing up topics you might not have considered yet. You know, I wrote a book, many of you have read it. It's called Construction Millionaire Secrets. And what I've observed from the wisest business leaders in the trades is that they're really bolted down when it comes to time, team, money, how to grow predictably, exit planning, you might call it succession planning, marketing, and sales. And on top of that, which is pretty unique to contracting, is dealing with the big question, we're a family business, Dom. For too long, our industry's been keeping secrets, and I'm done with it. It doesn't have to be that way. There are simple systems to help you run the business, make the money you want, and then, of course, live the life you want. Those simple systems give you that quiet confidence to take this company wherever you want to get to. If I had to summarize everything for you, the podcast is about mindset, the mindset of growth and success for you as a business owner. Now, speaking of mindset, I got a couple of dad jokes for you. Why dad jokes? Why bad jokes? And why dad jokes poorly delivered with poor timing? Because I want to get you laughing. Not because I'm not serious, I'm dead serious, but I want to get you laughing because I want to open your mind up to hear what our guest John has to say today. So I want to thank Carlos for these. Carlos and I work out together, and I guess he got a desk calendar with dad jokes from his little kids. He's got the cutest little kids, big chubby cheeks. It's awesome. And so he tears off the joke of the day and he brings them to me at the gym. So I put a couple of them together for you. And thanks to Carlos for this. So all right, I'm gonna be serious. Well, I'm not gonna be serious now. Now it's dad joke time. Hey, what do you get when you cross a basketball player and a groundhog? 6 more weeks of basketball season. Okay. What concert will just cost you 45 cents? Well, that's easy. 50 Cent featuring Nickelback. This is for my Aussie listeners and Aussie friends out there. Brian Steinhardt, Chaz Elliott, Bruce Loxby. I'm talking to you guys and all your mates out there. What is a koala bear's favorite drink? Coca-Cola. This next joke is definitely me. I would have done this. I lost my job at the bank on my first day. Yeah. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her over. That's got me written all over it. Here's one for you. If you got kids who are studying English literature in school, why did Shakespeare write with a quill pen? Because he couldn't decide which pencil to use, to be or not to be. Hey, we got a Wisconsin joke here. Wisconsiners, what do you call a cow in a tornado? A milkshake. All right, here we go. This one you're going to be able to use on the job site today. You're going to love it. Here it comes. How do you weigh a millennial? In Instagrams. Boom. Mr. Carlos, thank you. Listen, folks, I host this podcast because one day I want to be your business coach. It's on the table. You knew I was going to say it anyways. I said it. I have a team of business coaches that I've personally hand selected. I have a very, very high expectations for the people that join my team, and I'm proud of all of them. So as you listen to this podcast, ask yourself if you think one day me and my team might be the right tool to help you get to the next level you're looking for. So I'm going to go into business coach mode right now. I have 2 simple actions for you. Number 1, I'm going to challenge you. So in this episode with John, you're going to hear something, you're going to learn something or realize something, something John is doing, something you're doing, whatever it is. But whatever you realize, I want you to take action in the next 24 hours. And then I want you to pay attention on how that improves your business or your life. Okay. Now, number 2, so easy takeaways, right? Number 1 is take action on something. Number 2 is think on this idea. Are you happy being a contractor who runs a few crews, or are you finally ready to be a business person who just happens to run a trades company? By the end of today's episode, you will know the answer. Let's get to it. Mr. John Gioffre. How are you?
I am great, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, I'm excited. I follow you. I'm a stalker, a lurker.
Thank you. I love that.
I guess I guess these days that's a compliment because you want people to follow you.
Yeah, I'm like, I put it all out there publicly. Like, I'm
Yeah.
wanting people to follow along. You get a few creeps in there, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. TBD whether I'm a creep or not. No, I followed you because I found you on that modern Victorian post that went viral. And then I was listening to you and I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's not just like, "Meow, meow, meow."
Wow, then I have you fooled too, huh?
Yeah. Hey, so there you go. Both of us charlatans. That's the word.
Yeah,
Before I get too far, though, some people don't know you, never heard of you. So I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to think about it very carefully. You ready?
sure.
Mr. John Gioffre. Who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these forward facing contractors all over the world?
That's a beautiful question. Thank you for asking. I am John Gioffre. I am the owner and operator of Revent Builds. We are a very high-end luxury home builder
Mm.
developer in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I own a real estate portfolio. I'm a content creator. I have in-house videography. We're on YouTube. We're monetized. Doing some different teaching and coaching opportunities for local builders and realtors in the area. I kind of do a little bit of everything in the building and real estate space.
Yeah. And I have to ask, like, maybe take us back to where it started. Did you come from a construction family? Was your kitchen table a construction table?
No, no one in my family was a builder. I didn't go to
Oh,
school for construction.
you're
Um,
Italian. I'm
I
Italian. What are you
know.
talking about, man?
Yeah, but they were all running liquor and part of the mob and
Oh,
stuff like that. So yeah, no time for building.
yeah. Okay. So what drew you to building?
Well, honestly, I'd always liked, like, even when I was younger, like I would like set up my room and then I just stand in the corner for like 5 minutes and then I'd change it around. And like, so I was just always obsessed with like aesthetic. And I'd even take like action figures and like I wouldn't really like play with them. I'd set them up in like vignettes. And I had this like I
Mm,
just love that feeling of like layouts and Legos and building,
space.
right? So that's kind of where it started. And then as I got older and just became more exposed to it, like just loving different styles of architecture. And I always thought construction was such a cool career, and I'd always wanted to get into it. I didn't get into it until after I graduated college.
Mm.
Me and one of my teammates, we both played football at Rice University in Houston,
Oh,
Texas.
nice. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It feels like a different lifetime now. But so we started a real estate investment company buying distressed properties.
Right out of college.
Yeah, right out of college. And
Ah,
I was in law school at the time. So kind
of
of a
course.
crazy.
Of course you were. Of course you were. Yeah. So, hey, tell me about the first property you guys bought. Was it a good one? Was it a mistake? Did you
Oh man, it was
get eaten
amazing. We
alive?
still have it to this day with the same tenant in it.
Oh,
$35,000 we bought it for in
uh,
2012.
you're
We
killing me.
put maybe 10 grand into it. It's
Yeah.
been rented out for $1,300 a month ever since. It now appraises for around $350,000.
Good for you. Excellent. Excellent. And so you've done that again and again, rinse and repeat. Is that so? Did you get into like fixing your own places and then became a builder? What was that path?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So basically, I love that, I didn't plan this out, but like getting into rentals is an amazing way to earn your chops, right? Because you're not worried about selling it after. If you screw something up, you just got to fix it before you get a tenant in,
Yeah.
clean, safe. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? So amazing for learning. So we did about 10. Then I bought my first personal home in like 2013
Okay.
and I remodeled it. And that was my first more upscale, which is like, what I paid for the whole house to remodel it is less than what we remodel people's kitchens for now.
Right.
So
Right.
everything's
It's
relative,
just a
but
sign of the times. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so that's a really high performing Airbnb for me now. But that
Oh,
experience right there, I was like, oh my God, like this is my calling. Like I loved working with the guys on site, picking out the materials. Everyone that came over was like, this is so cool. You did such a good job. And
yeah.
it just completely snowballed from there.
Yeah. It's interesting how people just get into the business. Because I
Yeah.
remember my first few, they were rental homes, fixing them up. And I thought, oh, I'm going to save money. We're going to get linoleum countertops.
Yep.
And then one tenant later, you're like, did you just leave every pot you ever owned on this thing? Like, what
Yeah,
are you? Is that a pattern? What are you playing? Tic-tac-toe with fry pans?
absolutely. That's
And
why
then
it's
it's
just
got
put
to
the
be
stone
stone.
in them.
It's
Yep.
got to be stone.
Yep.
And you look at it when you're scraping together on that first house and you think, I can't. Now I'm like, no, that's standard. That's built in before anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, those types of lessons are exactly how you break in. Then you do, you work for a client for the first time, whole different ball game. And
Yeah.
then you're
You're not the client anymore. And now,
yeah, and then that's a whole different ball game. And then you start, you go from kitchens and baths to full remodels to multi-million dollar renovations to like the sky is the limit custom homes.
yeah. Let me restate the topic today only to ask a specific question. So the topic today is how I use pre-construction agreements to build luxury homes. Let's define that because every market's different. Austin's different than Chicago, different than Vancouver or Ottawa, like in Sydney, Australia. So what's a luxury home for you? Maybe square footage and all of that stuff because price is relative. But tell us what that house looks like.
Yeah, so honestly, I view that as a home larger than 3,000 square feet and
Okay.
over 1 million. But now there's levels to this, right? You could be doing a $5 million house. I mean, that sounds pretty crazy, but a $10 million house is double that, right? So there's like, and then it just goes up and up and up and up and up from there, right? Where you're just importing stuff from overseas and you have like one guy in the nation that can install this
Oh
material
yeah.
like it can become insane.
Locks from Germany that only one
Oh,
person knows how to install or service.
absolutely.
Like, yeah,
Absolutely.
there's a gentleman who listens to the show, wonderful guy, saying hi to you, CB initials. He only renovates homes that are brand new and they sell between 10 and 20 million brand new. Before the people move in, he comes in and does a reno. I
That's
can't, I can't, I'm proud of my ability to think big. I can hear the brakes squealing in my head. I'm like,
well, it's so funny. And hi, CB, how are you? But the thing that I tell people is we take one person's dream home,
mm,
we tear it all down to the studs, and we completely make someone else's dream home out of it.
oh, that's a nice way
Right.
to say it.
So
Yeah,
there's
good for you.
people that, yeah, they'll buy houses for 5+ million and pay us millions of dollars just to renovate them.
To make it their dream home.
Exactly.
Yeah, how have you found this to be true? Money is relative.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So the analogy for that is Vegas. I first of all, I hate Vegas. Let me just put that on the table first.
Okay.
But they've got penny slots, and you can play penny slots all day long. And then you walk through some casino, and there's the high rollers section
Yep.
where it's $1,000 and more, like for a hand. And other people look at it and go, "Well, that's crazy. Why would I ever do that?" But for the people in that room, that's what gets them going. It
Yeah.
has to be that big for it to make to get the same level of enjoyment out of gambling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell people all the time, I have like a big network of different tiered contractor friends. And
Mm,
I'm just like, hey, like I really need to figure out where you are. If we're not a good fit, I'll pass you along to one of my buddies and they'll do 100 jobs a year that are all under 100K or something like that. Right.
so
So
yeah, I'm glad you said that. This isn't where today's conversation was supposed to go. But for people out there listening who do either commercial or residential work, I want you to listen to what John just said. So I'm going to rephrase it and fight
go
with me
ahead.
on this or agree with me. If you have a $30,000 sub contract gig for, I don't know, let's say mill work,
Yeah.
just 30 grand, you're looking for somebody who's proven themselves at the $30,000 level. Are you going to give that job to some guy who's only done $5,000 small?
No.
No. Now, if you've got a $500,000, and that's not that big, $500,000 mill work, you're looking for a guy who's a company who already does $500,000 millwork projects all the time, right?
Right.
Yeah. So how do I change myself in your eyes from being your $30,000 guy to being one day your $500,000 millwork package guy?
Well, I think the biggest edge that you have are two things.
Mm,
Your trustworthiness. If you can just gain someone's trust and like, look, I'm not going to lie, I haven't done a job this big, but I know in my heart that I can do it. If you give me the leeway and you give me the tools, I know I'm going to do it for you. And guess what? Here's why I'm going to beat out the $500,000 guy because I'm going to do it for 300K. Right? So you're like, you're doing, obviously it can't
yeah,
be
you
impossible.
just said that to a business coach. So Heart and other
Yeah,
organs just
but
kicked in, but I know what you
yeah,
mean.
but that's the truth. When you're
I'm
like
going
on
to
your
earn it.
own, when you're on your own, $300,000 in millwork is a huge job. The other guy that is doing the 500K jobs all the time, he's got massive overhead. He's got a huge staff. You know, they're always going to be more expensive than you. So that's honestly just the natural progression. Is then you get the portfolio and you start charging more and you start charging more and you start charging more until you're just sitting people down right on their butts. They're like, oh my God. They'll literally repeat, did you say like, yeah, like 2 million? I said, yes, 2 million. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
that's where you know you're doing something right when you're like pushing all the way to how much you can push it, but you cannot do that without the portfolio. You just
Yeah.
simply can't.
Yeah. I'm glad we touched on that because, you know, everybody here is interested in growth or they wouldn't be listening to this show.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have tuned in. But people do say, I just got to get into this other level. How do, you know, all we did, every job we do is 30 grand. If I got the big juicy jobs that are 80 grand, but nobody's going to give them to you unless you can prove you've done a 60, a 70, and a $75,000 job. You know?
And let me say this also, like there's a difference between being a liar and faking it till you make it. You know, you have the tools. Just play the game. When you hear that number, that budget, oh, that sounds good. You know, it might be a little tight. Let me check. And in your head, you're like, oh shit, this is the good one, you know?
Yeah.
But the other thing that I always tell people is you're going to catch the type of fish that you're fishing for. If you have a tiny lure on your hook, you're going to catch a tiny fish. Now, if you put the big trophy bass lure, you got to know where to fish, but you also got to be patient. They're not going to come as often, but if you stick with it, you're going to get that. So you have to kind of moonlight for it. And then at a certain time, you have to say no to the small stuff to make room for the big stuff.
How many, this is a trick question, but I know you have the answer. How many times can I break your trust before you stop calling me for jobs?
So how many times can you break?
How many times can I let you down before you just say, yeah, you're not going to do our tiles anymore?
No, I mean, honestly, it's pretty much just one time.
Yeah. I mean, I can mess up but mess up and fess up.
No, there's a difference between a mistake and a willful, like, this is like fraud or
leaving
like
you hanging,
gross incompetence, or like that happens one time, you're done. Yeah. But what else I do is I test the waters. I'm like, hey, you want to work in my cabinets? You got to deal with this annoying client that's a low price job. You know, let me see how you work with them. Then you give them a little more and a little more and a little more. You don't let people just, you know, hang themselves with the slack, so to speak, unless they're a super, super well-respected company with the reputation. Yeah. But, you know, I've had, dude, mistakes are not only like probable, they're likely. They happen often. We can work that out all day. Hey, you know, your truck broke down. My client, there's a huge deadline. You just can't make it. Let's figure out how to get there. But you being drunk and not showing up and not responding, that's a totally different scenario, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Yeah, that's mess up and fess up versus just the lack of responsibility.
Yeah.
It feels like I could have you back on the show for about 60 other topics. But
absolutely.
Let's get you to the one I promised.
Sure.
So you're a big fan of pre-construction agreements and you build luxury homes. Let me ask you, what happened in your life or in your business to make you say, we don't do jobs without pre-construction agreements? Like, what was that watershed? Oh, you're smiling.
Let me try to sum this up. I mean, it was over maybe a dozen different happenings of you know, you spend, one of the biggest ones is you spend months and months and months with someone. You give them so much time. You're consulting them. You're writing them up an amazing estimate. You give them this perfect project, and they're just using your bid as ammo for other guys to beat them down, to get them lower. You get used. You just wasted a ton of your time right there, right? Yeah. That's massive. The second thing is expectation setting. You never, ever, ever want to show someone that you will do something like a service, give them your time, give them your expertise without being compensated for it. That is just a horrible way. Oh yeah, free estimates. It's no big deal. I mean, honestly, those are the people that I compete against sometimes. And they'll be like, so I have to pay you before I get an estimate? I'm like, yeah. I mean, like, there's multiple reasons why. We'll get into that. And they're like, I've never heard of that before. And I'm like, yeah. And you've never dealt with as good of a contractor as me before. you know?
I like
And
it.
they're just like, but it's not fair to the other guy. I said, well, guess what? If you want to offer him money for an estimate, I'm sure he'll take it. And then, they'll kind of just see like, yeah, that's why I'm like, I have a perfect track record. I've never let a client down in my career. Every job goes a certain way because I handle all of the means of production. I'm setting expectations. I'm showing the clients that we mean business. We're engaging in business right out the gate.
I like it. I like the confidence in your voice. You realize how confident you talk, right?
Oh, it's not even. I'm holding back the rage that I want to like beat this into certain people's heads because it's just so absurd. Whoever like created this free estimates thing, that might be for like a service like an HVAC replacement unit or like a freaking oil change. We'll give you a free estimate. It takes 5 minutes. It takes me 50 to 100 hours to do a bid sometimes. Right. It's insane. And depending on where they're at in the process, the amount of consulting and experts that I need to bring in to piece their project together is even more.
Right. I mean, I suppose that as you start asking for that, you just naturally move up market.
Oh yeah,
because the people that say that that's ridiculous, it's a hard thing to overcome. There's a gentleman just south of you in the Bastrop area.
Yeah.
He's really good at doing paid estimates, and he's not he does some renovations, but he does a lot of fence and outdoor living work.
Yeah.
But he does paid work to put people's packages together because he's busy. He's an important man. He's got a crew to run. He's got a family. He's a great family man. And so if you want me to come out, it's going to cost you. And yes, There's lots of people who could do it for free. You usually will call me afterwards anyways. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the funny thing is like, I don't just spit out some random, like, soft bids, like just to get your business. I'm giving you an exact price. I'm like using all of my expertise to craft this to fit your budget. I'm leaning on my leverage with all of my suppliers and they're spending their time on it. Imagine if I just kept sending them projects and it's like, that went away. And they're like, dude, I spent so much time. So I want to hit on a point that you just brought up though. It's a barrier to some jobs, but just lower your price on your retainer. Even if you charge someone $500, that is a massive step. You still set that protocol that my time is not free. I need you to be serious and have some skin in the game before we start. Now, I will say, you don't just go in blind. We talk rough budget. I meet them for a free consultation for an hour or two. I'll discuss their whole project with them because I need to know if we're so far away, we're not going to engage in pre-construction services.
Yeah.
And I can give you a rough budget that I tell everyone, this is pulled out of thin air. It's not a real thing, but I've done enough projects where I can know a range, right? Yeah. But that's my answer to everyone. If you have to charge $100, just charge it because there's some type of service that you're doing. You're giving them advice. You're getting them to like, if they're uncomfortable with paying $100, there's probably no service in there that you'd want to do for that person. But we charge, depending on the project, it'll be anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 plus, right?
To do the design package, or you call it a pre-construction agreement.
Well, and that has nothing to do with architecture or design or all of the various structural engineering, interior designers, permitting, surveys. The client's paying for all that directly, but I am bringing in all these people. Oh, you like this style? Let's talk to this architect. Oh, you have a septic problem? I have my septic designer. We have a sewage or like a taps and water problem. We bring in a taps engineer. So it's like, I'm looking at the trees on your lot. I'm looking at how much you can build. I'm giving you all my expertise to help guide you along in this process. And what I tell people is, I am trying to overcome every obstacle that there is for us to get started. The faster we can get started, the quicker that I can get paid, the more money I'm going to make, so our interests are aligned.
Yeah. But somebody else told me this, that the most expensive building you'll ever build is the one that isn't getting built.
Exactly.
Just can't get out of the ground.
Yeah, and that's another amazing thing is you get to stick your nose, like you get to get in the client's project, in their sphere. I say, once you pay that retainer, we're on the same team. Then I'm not like waiting for months because you don't know who to go to talk to. I'm connecting all those dots to get you start it as quick as we can, but also to get me, as included and to handle all those means of production, like I said earlier.
Do you know why I'm smiling and laughing?
Because I was pointing right at you.
No. Because it's my favorite thing, and people make fun of me for it, is when I say, I got a guy.
Yeah.
They'll come to me with some weird request, right? And I'm like, I got a guy, or I got a lady. And so you are that person paid to say, I got a guy.
Yes.
I got a SAPS engineer. I got a solar remediation. I got a whatever. I got a guy.
Well, and think about this. There's another advantage that I tell all my homeowners. Let's say you come to me with an architect. I can be the bad guy. I can ride that architect really hard. Hey,
no, not you.
Not me. I'm a very passive guy. But I'm like, the architect just promised us both we'd have the plans in 4 weeks. Why are they not here? So it takes you out of the mud. I'm like, let me and my team be on all these people. There's these happy creatives that can take a little too long and get in la la land. Nope.
I was going to say, and this isn't a slight against designers, but designers design stuff that can't structurally work sometimes.
Yes.
They have beautiful vision. And so I imagine that you come in and say, well, that's great, but here's why it won't work. Here's why.
Or here's why it's going to add $200K that the client doesn't want to pay, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, I always tell them, I'm like, I'm never going to argue with you if you want to pay me more money, but I'm going to poke you in the side because I want you to be transparent with what your budget is, because I'm the guy that's going to craft this lump of clay into the sculpture that we need.
How much do you talk about money up front? How much and how do you talk to me about how I'm going to pay for this luxury?
Very direct, very, very directly, and a lot up front as designed. Like I want this whole thing to be front loaded. And I tell them, look, if a number comes out of my mouth, you can bet that it's conservative. I'm hoping to beat expectations. I never want to tell you 500K and it'd be $1.5 million. Right. And so I'm just saying, look, and this is so funny because people think it's like used car sales. They don't want to like give their hand away. I'm like, no, my price isn't going to change. Like, we're not negotiating about this, but I'm asking you, what's your ideal price? They're like, well, I really just need it priced out. I don't know where to start. And I was like, okay, 800,000. They're like, what? I'm like, well, it's too high, don't you? Right. So it's like, where do you want to be? In an ideal world, if we're talking about a scope that's $1 million and you want to be at 200K, we either need to change that scope or we're not a good fit. Right. But everyone has a number that it's not even how much money they have, it's what they want to spend. So I'm like, the quicker you can clue me into what that really is, I'll actually make this work. I'll make this work for how much you want to spend if it's reasonable.
Yeah. I love the way you go about that. And the reason I ask is because I want people to be more forthright in asking. I've got a lot of soft questions that I ask that don't even sound like I'm asking about money, but I'm trying to figure out. So one of the questions or the lines, I call them lines of logic and reasoning. Right.
I like that.
And so we'll just be having a conversation like, John, have any of your friends done a project like this? And they'll go, yeah, Susie and Brad down the street did the same thing. Oh, what'd that come in at? I don't know, like $750. But the way they say that $750, right? Or the way they spit out the word Susie, like Susie down the street. I'm like, I love that. You just ask, right? Like, hey, what's going on? Like, do you know somebody else? Like, if they go, yeah, my mailman said this should cost about $300,000. Like, okay, what are you doing?
Yeah.
We're not going to play chicken poop bingo here, right? My mailman said. But when they talk about Susie or somebody down the street did this, I came in around $750, but they didn't like what they got for $750.
Yeah,
we got a budget. Now when I do the bracketing later, and so bracketing is part of a certain part of the sales process that I use. I'm not you, but this is the process, right?
I love hearing about this.
The bracketing is where I'm going to put a high and a low in there, and the low isn't that low, but the high is ridiculous, like ridiculous, right? So with the Susie and Brad situation where I'm talking to my client, they're going to say, well, Dom, what's this going to cost? To go, I don't know. It's hard. How long is a piece of string, right? I don't know. But I can tell you from what we've talked about, we're probably in the range of like $850 at the low end, maybe up to, I don't know, 1.2, 1.3. And I can tell by their face where we're going to land right there. I just bracketed based on that tiny little conversation about Susie and Brad because she hates Susie or she's got to one-up Susie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. And these are all tiny little tools, but they add up. And my point here is, how important is it to you to ask about money up front?
Extremely. And when I get like let's say an incoming uh, a contact form on my website, when I get that incoming, I have all the brackets in there. They have to select where they think they're going to land.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if it's like home edition, I have it all the way from like 250 to 500, 500 to 750, 750 to a million, blah, 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 right? Because then someone will fill one out, they'll put 200, and I'll just respond, hey, this sounds like a great project, but we're going to be significantly higher than this. Is your budget flexible? Well, yeah, we do have some flexibility. Okay, I'll give them a call. Some people are just so far off that you can just tell it's not worth your time. And I will say this, if you're hungry, there are many, many times that people have doubled their budgets, if not more. You just have to find that like they really might not understand how much it costs. And that's something worth digging in. But still, that's you got to get honed in to find that. A lot of those people will just waste your time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are lots of tire kickers out there.
Oh, yeah.
So the way to overcome tire kickers is the same as the sales process. And really sales, look, I understand people didn't get into trades because they wanted to be great at sales. Like, can we just agree? There's a couple people out there that were great at sales and went into the trades, but usually we're good on the tools and we like helping people. So use that. Have curiosity and care, but be really curious and really care. And I hear actually a lot of caring in your openness and honesty. Like, this is going to be 800 grand. Like, I care enough to tell you, you're looking at 8 easy with the site conditions, 8 easy with this, with that, like what, and the people have to hear that you care, but then you got to go back to curiosity. Tell me why you're doing this. Why don't you just buy a house? You can just buy one already done.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because when someone comes to me for my quote unquote expert advice, if I am misleading them or if I am not bluntly honest with them, I take that further. That's not just like telling a white lie or willfully withholding the truth. That is fraudulent. That is criminal. If you're going to mislead someone just to get them wrapped into a project to then change order them to death and charge them double, that's disgusting. I'd rather risk the sale up front by telling them that their budget is not a good fit. You know how many people have been like, damn, this guy's going to tell me the truth the second he meets me? I actually believe what he says, and I need to change my expectations. You know what? We have the money, but so-and-so told me we could do it for that. And I'm like, well, so-and-so's a bum. And let me tell you what.
So-and-so's the mailman.
Yeah. Exactly.
My father-in-law used to be a builder. He was a builder back in the 70s. And he says, this project should be no more than $70,000. You're like, what?
Yeah, I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Does he, why don't you have him do it though? Oh, well, he's, I'm like, yeah, okay.
I like those questions. So you and I have both used those examples here. Why don't you have him do it? Is one.
Yeah.
The other question in that same vein of me is saying, why are you doing this? You just go buy a house already done.
Yeah.
The answer they give me and how they say the answer is everything I need. When they go, you kidding me? Have you seen what modern construction is like?
Yeah.
Now I know they're disgusted with something in modern construction, or no, this was my parents' lot. We have to build here. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is part of my dad's original orchard when they came from Germany and settled here. You're like, oh,
there we go.
Oh, we got a project. But if I don't ask the question, why don't you guys just go buy a house? Like, you don't need to renovate this one, do you?
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, this catchment is great. My daughter's got special needs. She has to go to this school. We've committed, but she's also great in sports. Just, this is the path. Okay, we got a story. Now I know why. But again, and it sounds so obvious, and you hear Simon Sinek talk about why. I have to know their why.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. And it's like, it's also, you're just like better able to fit their need. Or, some people will be like, well, I could just knock the house down and build new for that price. And I'm like, the hell you can't. I'm like, you want to know what it is for new construction? It's this, and we have to, and you're going to be a year and a half out.
I was going to say time. Yeah.
Permits,
time.
Right? So it's like,
don't touch that footing. You touch that footing, it's going to add a year.
Like, exactly. So yeah. And we go that route all the time, but I like that too, because I always want to get to know like what motivates this person so that I can better meet their needs or know that their motivation is not a good fit for me. So when you start getting a little busier, it's really nice to be able to vet clients as well.
What do you mean by that? Like,
Well, I mean, I make this joke nearly every first meeting. Like we'll talk on the phone, things are well, and then we meet in person. And at the end, I'm like, well, I guess I've determined that at least as of now, that it looks like you may not be a psycho, and they'll just start laughing. And I'm like, well, I'm literally like meeting you. If you're like demeaning, if you treat me like I'm your butler, if, I see you like talking to your husband or wife in like a horrible way, there's a lot of things that I take into account. I always tell people too, like pre-construction services is like dating. When we move into construction, that's a marriage. We both need to be on extremely good terms. So that's, you can chase a dollar amount all you want. The horrible clients, you won't see a penny of it. They'll milk you dry. And you're like, that whole job was a waste. $1 million.
Waste of my life.
Yeah. And honestly, you know what else it is? It'll strengthen all your contracts. It'll get all of your procedures top notch. And you're going to be like, you know what? Thank you, you horrible person, for me now having to put like just the utmost scrutiny in every single one of my procedures.
Oh, so you're saying, actually, this is something I already think I observed in you, is that you learn job to job. Like you learn and then you do. So you modify. You don't stay doing the same thing,
No.
And I've said this on the show before, that the beauty of our business is that we constantly reinvent ourselves from project to project, or even within a project.
Mhm.
But if I've got job A and job B and job C, the stuff I learn in job A, I can apply to job C. I don't have to. The way I used to run my business was horrendous. I just did job A, job A, job A, job A, complain, job A. I wasn't getting anywhere. I had to go learn to change, learn to be open to, okay, well, the bumper cars of life just knocked me in the head. So let's move this way now and try fix it. And eventually you get the formula right.
Or even worse, at least you have a formula when you do job A. What I see a lot of people do, and I fell into this trap earlier in my career, we want to be people pleasers. We want to be yes man. We think that's the way to earning good clients and referrals. You can never, ever let the client set your procedure. Well, we're going to buy the materials. No, you're not. Because I need to handle every delivery. I need to know when it's coming. If it's damaged, I need to return it. I need to be able to warranty it. You can't order anything. No, your friend's a painter. I don't care. You're coming to me now. You're in my system that's set up for success. I will not let anyone on this job site, you included, by the way, you need to schedule an appointment with me to come into your own job site unless you live there. Yeah.
Even that's
and those are things.
No, but that's, I like that positioning. I like the strength of your conviction goes a long way. So,
and easier said than done. It's very, very challenging, and you have to put yourself into some awkward situations, but you cannot let anyone, especially the client, be a barrier to your own success in the job.
That might be the clip we cut out of this interview to use. It is. I can see the problem is where my brother's the painter. Well, I want to use my brother on this job. And you're strong on that. You're like, well, he can bid like everybody else, but until I've seen his work, he's not touching this project.
Honestly, even so, I don't care. I don't care who your brother is, unless I use him and he's my guy. Great. But here's the thing. I don't have the same leverage with your brother that I do with my painter that I have 20 other projects going on.
Right.
I also, the other thing is too, when things go wrong, the second you brought that guy in, I'm going to point the finger. I'm going to say, well, your painter's not doing well. He didn't caulk this. I have to do extra work. Now you're working for me. And now I'm pointing the finger. I'm saying, this is what I tell all my clients. When things go well, you can praise me. When they go wrong, it is all my fault. I will never, ever point the finger at one of my trades and act like they're not doing the right job. You know what? I'm sorry. I'll handle that, is my response. But we have this happen all the time. Or they pick out the cabinets before and they love their cabinet guy. He comes, screws up our entire job, and we have to fire him. And the client's like, I'm so sorry. I know this was my guy. And I'm just like, I told you, and it's a miserable experience and the project gets delayed. And now I just have a zero tolerance policy. It's just like, if you hire me every single person in my sphere is the only people that can work on this job.
Yeah, I imagine that being in the luxury home market, you're dealing with more affluent people, obviously. Did they inherit that money, or are they still working?
I would say it's a mix. There's some people that have very wealthy families that
Mhm.
want something, right? I would say a lot of the people we work for are working. They're CEOs, they're CFOs, doctors, lawyers. They've hit it big in the stock market or
Yeah.
something like that. So, like, the other thing that's really tough is these are such alpha manager
That's
people.
where I was going with this, is they're used to
Yes.
managing stuff. But at the same time, I'm used to managing stuff and I don't have the time. Like I'm already
No,
managing what I'm managing. I don't want to manage the build.
well, those are the best clients when they're like, look, I'm so busy that like I need you to just handle it all. I'm like, thank God. You know, yeah, the people that try to do that, they're so used to just being the man that tells others what to do that we can butt heads a little. And I'm like, look, man,
A little?
I mean, they're at the end of the day, they're my client. I'm never going to disrespect them, but I am not going to go away. And I'm also never like this war of attrition. We're going to just have the same argument over and over. When I tell you not to show up on site unannounced and definitely do not talk to my people, ask them to do other things. Like what I say too, this is another funny thing, like speaking to a client is like talking to the police. Anything you say
I
can
know.
and will be used against you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's just, you have to have these uncomfortable talks. But I feel like the people that are very high up, they really respect it and they'll fall in line with it. Even if they're kicking and screaming, and even if it's the 10th time, you got to just do it. You can't let it go.
So take me through that script, and you feel free to use stories, but of course protect the names of the innocent. Don't use anybody's name, but you're going to do a job for me, and I show up unannounced. I'm like, it's my house. Show up when I
Yeah.
want.
Well,
So I show up on the job site, and you see me. What's that first conversation?
it's normally I hear from my guys, or they'll say, "Oh, I spoke to Antonio on site, and he said, what?" I said, "Whoa, don't even say it. Do not. You don't speak to Antonio. You say hi to him when you're around, but this is just like, look at how much work that it's taking me to like. Now I got to talk to this guy, that guy, and now we're not making progress on your job. We're trying to figure out why you want this grout line moved up a half an inch, or like why you think this doesn't look good when it's not done." So I'm like, when you told me you wanted it done on X date, believe it or not, you are delaying this project by being here. Like, let us finish. If there's something wrong, by all means, but we have to schedule those at like waypoints that make sense. It is just not efficient for you to come by. Everyone gets freaked out. You're watching over their shoulders. They feel uncomfortable working. When you ask them questions, these are great people. They feel uncomfortable not giving you answers. Because again, these people are good. They know how to get what they want out of people. And I'm just like, if you haven't had that conversation with me or my project manager, it did not happen. And I do not want to hear about it. Because guess what? Antonio is a great person. He doesn't see the bigger picture.
No.
He said that's easy. We wouldn't even use him to refinish those floors. Like, don't ask him that. You know what I mean? So it's tough, man. I've had to have that conversation. I swear to God, I've had it with one client maybe a dozen different times, and every time it would be a big uncomfortable thing, and they would blow up, but then they would cool down. We would finish this part of the stone,
Yeah.
and they'd be like, "Oh my God, this looks beautiful, John." And I'm like, "I know. Just let me get there." You know what I mean?
So you deal with it as soon as it comes up.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like that's just the other thing too, is like, I like to have a really personal relationship with my clients. So we text a lot. I sometimes you just have to be like, you know what? This just isn't working for me. We're going to have to keep all of our communication via email. Like, it's very uncomfortable. And like a lot of the times you're telling people, things they don't want to hear. But again, you cannot let your client be an obstacle to you having success in this project.
Yeah. I've heard another builder say this, and I don't know if you might have the same viewpoint, but talking to the customer, there's going to be points in time I have more invested in this job than you do. So I am absolutely in on this project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like, yeah, we're at a point where it's like, look, I know you've given me a lot of money up to this point, but all of that money has been spent on materials and labor. Like, I need to pass this inspection for us to get a draw to where we're actually making profit, right? Like, where we're getting into parts of jobs.
So you speak openly about profit with people?
Well, I speak. Here's the other thing. I do everything fixed fee. So we are not an open book company. The numbers that they see are the numbers they get. So it actually makes it easier because shockingly, cost plus method, right? If you show someone your job costs this and I make this,
right?
There's a totally different mentality. I can give them this price and this much is my profit. They'll lose their minds. They're okay with the end price, but they're not okay with how much you're making on the job. So I just don't think it's appropriate. We make more on certain line items and less on others. But if you're okay with the whole price, we don't need to discuss what my profit is. But I will say, that's why we take a 50% deposit up front, because I'm buying every material for the whole job. So it's like when you're talking about,
especially now with materials being in shortage, or you can't get all the same hinges,
and price increases over time.
Price increases or something crazy where,
But yeah, so I'll talk to them in terms of like, I don't really, we don't cash out of anything until the job's done. That's all working capital until it's over. So, and then on the other hand, I use this as like a tool to show people we're on the same team. The faster I get done, the more money I make. So our interests are aligned. Why would I not want to finish this job faster? We cannot move on because our inspector came and we have to rectify this before we can move forward, right? So it's like, you're preaching to the choir.
So you do talk to them in business terms about this being a business. We just can't move on until this is fixed. We can't move on until this is taken care of. We can't. Yeah. Right. Yeah, man, there is so much here, but there's only so much time.
Yes.
What was the question I should have asked? You thought, I'm having an interview with Dom today. We're going to be talking about pre-construction agreements. You know what he's going to ask me?
I was hoping that you were going to ask me how my facial routine for how I keep my skin so well.
You do have a strong beard game. I'll give you that.
Honestly, to be truthful, I feel like we covered so much. I loved it, man. I thought we got into a lot of different aspects, and obviously you can tell I'm very passionate and there's so many different topics I can go deeper in, but I think we covered a lot today.
Yeah, we did. And there's so much more. The key here, and I hear this in you, is that you're a continuous learner.
Oh yeah.
Right. Always. You're self-driven. There's an internal engine that nobody can turn off. That's in you. And that you're a self-learner. Maybe give everybody here a book or a piece of learning where they can follow what you do in learning. Like read, listen.
Yeah. So honestly, my Instagram is a big tool. It's John, John, Gioff, Gioff _builds. We do updates on all of our projects. I break down terms. I talk about a lot of the things we talked about in the show. If you follow the link in my Instagram bio, I have a YouTube. You can go all the way to the beginning of my YouTube. And earlier in my career, I would break down processes like crazy. I talk about like tips for when you're starting. I talk about all these different ways to get these bigger jobs. So yeah, there's a lot that they can check out.
Yeah. And this modern Victorian post you had kind of went viral. Tell us a little story about that.
Yeah. I mean, that was basically just, I think, so outside the norm that like it was
design-wise, it was outside the norm. Yeah.
Design-wise, and just how it was like kind of this oxymoron of like old meets new. And it's like all of this familiar stuff done in such a different way. And then honestly, it's just for a spec home, it's just so daring. And I'm just so happy the risk paid off. But basically, all these realtors, like I said, hundreds and hundreds of realtors would come through and they'd make reels, and they just started blowing up and blowing up and blowing up. And then eventually there was news stories and, different influencers with like millions of followers doing videos there. And it just went like wildfire across definitely all of Austin and Texas, but even in the, all the way to the west and east coast of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the West Coast and I found out about you. That roof line, I just look, the roof line's where the money is. I'm like, that's a spec home?
Yeah, exactly.
With that roof line. But that's
freaking,
it's so nice. It's so nice. It's smooth. It looks good. It's got what was the square footage of that?
It was like just above 3,000.
Yeah, I didn't think it was like a massive footprint. It's a nice
Yeah.
house. Don't get me wrong. It's a great house.
Oh yeah.
But
But
the
it's an inner
footprint
city
doesn't look,
home,
yeah.
small lot, inner city. Yeah, like you got to make it all count. It's tough.
Yeah. But that's a statement home too. Like when you buy that house, everybody's like, who's that neighbor?
Yeah, and
It's Susan.
the owners are so cool. They put up like all these, it looks like Gru's house from the Minions.
Oh,
So they
really?
put all these Minions characters, like,
Yeah.
and they do like amazing decorations. And they said I'm welcome to tour at any time with new clients. They're absolutely
Nice.
amazing people.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and I bet you get a lot of referral business. I would imagine that a large part of your business isn't cold traffic. It's, I heard about you, or my friend Susie used you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Poor
a big
Susie.
part of it.
Yeah. John, okay, so we know how to find you out there on Instagram. Maybe give us the Instagram handle and the YouTube channel handle one more time, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. John Gioff Builds, JOHN GIOF_builds. And then my YouTube is just my full name, John Gioffre, GIOFFRE.
Love it. John, thanks for being on the show. I'm pretty sure you're coming back again in the future.
Dude, I welcome it, man. I've had a blast. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thanks, man. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Well. Whew. What did you learn from John? Yikes. How do you like that approach, attitude, conviction? That is a man with confidence, a man with a plan. It doesn't matter what your style is. You can make that your way of doing things in your own style. But I really like his customer communication, process, his approach to it, and his mindset, which a big part of the show is about. Anyways, the question, as I raised earlier, is what can you put in place? As we speak, as you're on this podcast, you are with your business coach. And so the challenge is there. Unfortunately, I don't have the accountability, right? You can do nothing and I won't know about it. But the question of essence, as we say in coaching, is based on what you learned or heard from John, what were the action items you would like to take? Number one. Okay. What's the first action you want to take? And when will you do it by? There you go. All you've got to do is go do that one thing. Go do that thing. And your business will take a step forward. Might not be easy. You might encounter resistance. And guess what? That resistance is good. We need that resistance. Maybe I'll talk about the power of resistance in another episode. But right now, let's get to the ending here. I want to read a letter that came in. I mean, a letter. Come on. What is it? 2000? Is it 1998? This came in as an email. This email specifically came there. You might have heard an episode that we did here on the show with Coach Lee Miller. Many of you already work with Lee, and so you know how powerful he is as a business coach. How he's using the 10x built system. It's working for people, and so we get emails in. I had him as a guest on the show, right? You guys had heard it. So this is what it said: Lee, just finished listening to you and Dom on the podcast. I pulled into a parking lot to send this email to keep myself accountable. We were just talking about accountability when I was wrapping up John's episode, right? Just pulled into a parking lot to send this email to keep myself accountable and make sure I got it done. Otherwise, I'll do the typical, I'll contact them later and never get around to it. Look forward to talking, Nick. Well, thanks, Nick. And I'm looking forward to talking with you as well. Here's another one that came in. And this one came in from a guy named Lucas S. in Michigan. I'll just say his last initial, Lucas S. And actually, we have a meeting with him, him and his wife, about a week or so. Here's what he said in his email. Hi, Dom. I just want to say thanks. My wife and I went, Hi, Dom. I just want to say thanks. My wife and I went back through the go back tool you sent, and I have been undercharging about $3 an hour when I thought we were already expensive in the market. It's frustrating for sure, but I heard you when you said I'm probably going after the wrong deals. Now I'm going back through all your episodes to listen to all the marketing ones. Thanks. And like I said, we continue the conversation. I gave him a bit of homework, and then I'm having a meeting with him and his wife next week. So that's great. Thank you for that feedback, guys. It is important. If you've got a thought or a comment, even if you've got a criticism, send it. I'm not immune from that. If you want something, if you have an opinion about something, let me know. Some of you already do that, so I might as well ask in advance. Today, I want to simplify and solve a common problem. And Mr. Lucas in Michigan, I might just call him Lucas Michigan now. What a cool name that would be. Because of you, I put together a new pack, a new combination of documents. It's called the More Better Customers Pack. And here's what's inside it. If you can see me on YouTube, you can see that I've now changed screens. I got about 3 screens in front of me here. It's like a soft NASA launch in this office. Excuse me. So here's the downloads, Lucas, that I put together for you. Well, Lucas already knows because this was part of our conversation. But now I'm going to make it available to everybody as one download. If you want this, you just text me 315-903-7853 and say More Better Customers. Here's the pack that we put together. All of these are free downloads, right? The ultimate Get Things Under Control guide. So it's just for contractors to get back in control of the business. You need that document so you can sort of level set yourself and get ready to grow, right? Then the second one is how to win commercial bids. And don't worry if you're a residential contractor, because we've also got how to sell to homeowners. So we've got those 2 documents in there. So answers the commercial people in the audience and as well as the more residential focused. Calculate my revenue responsibility per hour. Now you might think that's a weird thing for me to put in the More Better Customers pack, but the reason it's in there is focus, mindset, and the discipline of both of those things. You need to have that as sort of a base tool to get ready to launch into being not more of a marketer, but be more marketing aware. If you're going to go get more customers, you have to understand who's the right customer, who's not my right customer, and is it going to help you move towards your goal, which typically, listening to my show, typically you want to make more money or be more profitable on the money you're making, right? So that's in there. And then we've got 5 questions that kick out tire kickers. So for those of you who are frustrated in your marketing, that you're spending a lot of time wasting time with people who are tire kickers. They can't, they won't, they're not able to make a decision, then that's the question there. Plus, on top of that, you heard excellent stuff from John Gioffre today. Excellent. Just top notch. I'm really happy when we put together an episode like that. John, if you're listening, which I hope you are, thanks again, man. Great episode. So again, the ultimate Get Things Under Control guide, how to win commercial bids, calculate my revenue responsibility per hour, my ideal customer exercise workbook. I think I forgot to mention that one. You get the ideal customer exercise workbook and you use that with the revenue responsibility per hour workbook. You use both of those together to figure out who is your who and how you're going to go after them. Selling to homeowners, of course, selling to commercial, selling to homeowners, and then the 5 questions that you ask to kick out tire kickers. And that is the Lucas, Michigan new system called More Better Customers. So thank you, Lucas. Folks, if you want that one, just shoot me a text. You know the cell phone number already, but I'll say it again for those of you who are new to the show. The cell phone number, text me to this number is 315-903-7853. And just use the keyword More Better Customers. And that way I know which one to shoot back off to you. All right, folks, thank you very much for checking in. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This podcast is a thin replacement for actually you and me sitting across a coffee table somewhere and having a coffee. Or if it's later in the evening, perhaps a glass of wine. Whatever it is, that's what I really want. I want to be sitting across the table from you having a real human conversation. Until then, this podcast or maybe the YouTube channel, that's going to have to do. So have a great day. Go into this week with lots of power, lots of energy, lots of wisdom from John, and all the tools you need. Get that More Better Customers pack. Those are all the tools you need to take the next step forward in your business. And I'm happy for you to have them. Have a great day. Bye-bye.